Tushar.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Live, ma'am.
Good evening and namaskar. The first 1,000 days is a period of rapid physical growth and accelerated mental development and offers a unique opportunity to build lifelong health and intelligence as the baby in the womb is dependent on the mother for nutrition as well as mental, physical, and emotional growth. The treatment and nutrition of patients in the first 1,000 days makes a difference to the mother as well as baby's life. I, Ms. Sheetal Bangar, on behalf of Mayor Vitabiotics, am pleased to welcome and thank all the delegates who have registered and are attending this panel discussion with us today. Mayor Vitabiotics is the global business partner of UK Vitabiotics, headquartered in London, which is UK's #1 and world's fastest growing nutraceutical company. Dr. Kartar Singh Lalwani is the founder and chairman of Vitabiotics. He is a bioscience inventor who has successfully commercialized his own inventions. Mayor Vitabiotics is one of the leading pharmaceutical manufacturers in India. Mayor has created a unique portfolio of products for addressing the unmet needs of mother during pregnancy and lactation and also nutrition in growing children. The first 1,000 days refers to the period that begins with pregnancy planning and goes up to when the child reaches his or her second birthday. Each day of this journey is a special and has a great influence on the nutritional status of mother and child for their appropriate development and growth. The session today will guide all of the doctors about ensuring that every child and every mother must have the access to information to create an optimal environment during the first 1,000 days for their better tomorrow. For this, Mayor offers a wide range of products which includes Calcimax 500, Calcimax Total, we have Calcimax P suspension and entire range of Well Women for their betterment. So today, Mayor Vitabiotics provides a unique platform to connect, engage and create an avenue towards robust exchange of information on first 1,000 days. The guidance of leading and eminent speaker Dr. Gayatri Deshpande and Dr. Pramod Jog. To introduce our eminent speakers, Dr. Gayatri Deshpande, she is a senior consultant gynecologist at Nanavati Super Speciality Hospital. She has a rich experience of 20 years in her clinical practice and has done more than 5,000 surgeries so far. She has been trained in laparoscopy and minimally invasive surgeries at Royal Free Hospital, London. Recently, she has initiated the program of robotic surgeries in different gynecological procedures, which has gained an excellent momentum. Congratulations, ma'am, for this. Talking about Dr. Pramod. Dr. Pramod is a senior pediatrician, Pune, professor of pediatrics, D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pune. He was president IAP 2016, SA member, International Pediatric Association, tenure 2016 to 2019. He has been a chairman, AIP Advisory Committee on Immunization in the tenure of 2015 to 2017. He is a senior consultant at UNICEF and he is a chief editor at Times of Pediatrics. Congratulations, sir, and welcome to the platform. So today, both the doctors are going to interact with us and have a great panel discussion on first 1,000 days. So now I would like to hand over the session to a dynamic speaker for the day, starting with Dr. Gayatri Deshpande. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, friends and my colleagues. At the outset, I would always like to thank the Mayor Organics for giving such a knowledge-based platform to interact with the doctors as well as my colleagues as a general practitioner also, which always will give the insight to treat our obstetric patients. As an obstetrician, we always strive hard to have a successful pregnancy for the mother as well as the baby. As you are all aware, the nutrition actually starts preconceptually, that is 3 months before she actually conceives, and then goes ahead for next 9 months. and our all aim is to really have a healthy baby without any complications or the anomalies, as well as try to have a vaginal birth which is completely uneventful. So today we are going to discuss the basic interesting facts about the micronutrients which make a big difference for the fetal growth. So let me share my screen and we will interact with each other apart from my own presentation. So welcome colleagues. The concept of uh, first 1,000 days, it's a very novel and new concept because why 1,000 days are considered, they have calculated it very nicely. It's 270 days, that is 9 months of pregnancy, plus first year and second year, 365 days each, the total becomes 1,000 days. Why it is so important? Because obviously the malnutrition in any form, which can be during the pregnancy as well as first and second year of the baby's life, makes a huge difference for its future. It is not only the undernutrition, which is the wasting of muscles, then the low birth weight and not really thriving properly, the inadequate vitamins and minerals, which can actually give rise to a lot of multiple vitamin deficiencies. But sometimes it can relate to the later on higher risk of metabolic syndromes, that is non-communicable diseases like overweight, obesity, diabetes, hypertension. And the burden is quite high. Right now, 1.9 billions are obese, while 462 millions are underweight. 47 million are under the age of 5 are having the wasting and the muscle wasting, which is kind of like a protein energy malnutrition, which Dr. Zog will be really talking in detail. And it is said that 45% of the death among the 5 years are actually linked to the malnutrition and the different vitamin deficiencies. Hence, as you can know, the developmental, economic, social, and medical impacts of the global burden of the malnutrition are quite serious and lasting for the individual, their families, in turn communities, and for the countries. So I just discussed why 1,000 days are important. Now, how do we contribute to all these 1,000 days? One second, something stuck with my slide. Really sorry for that. Basically, we have to see that how well and poorly nourished are our children and how pregnancy is going to affect it. Okay, so as I told you, the undernutrition is equally important also with the overnutrition. Now, in pregnancy, the brain development just starts before the conception, and then it actually gains momentum at an astonishing speed. That is, if you see at the 4th week, there are only 10,000 neurons, but by the 24th week, it has more than 10 billion neurons. So that fast is the neurological development, and various maternal nutrients are responsible for the building blocks of these brains. That is folic acid, iron, zinc, protein, omega-3, which is most important nowadays with the research shown by the international nutrition journals. Now, pregnancy, the well-being of the mother and the child are intertwined together. Healthy mother only can give birth to a healthy child. Poor nutrition will harm the mother's health in the form of, if she is severely anemic, she will have a lot of medical complications. She can have pregnancy-induced hypertension, as well as it will harm the baby's health. And always remember, there is a food insecurity, poverty, and lot of emotional factors which gives a very negative condition, and it can give a very bad outcome for the children, like cognitive delays, attention disorders, and emotional problems. So it's extremely important that how much is the weight gain of the expecting mothers. Always remember, first 5 months, the fetal weight is less than 450 grams, and hence the maternal weight ideal should be around 1 kg per month. Whenever I say that, always remember that first 3 months, they might have a weight loss. So they have to replenish that weight loss because of the morning sickness and severe vomiting. And then they should have 1 kg per month. From 5th to 9th month, the fetus is actually taking off the stage of the weight gain. So 450 grams, it will turn to 3 kg, that is 300 grams, 3000 grams. And hence the maternal weight gain has to really follow that path. So she should have 2 kg per month. So how much should be the total weight gain? Any expecting mother, we actually average weight gain, we tell them as 12 to 15 kilos. But remember that it depends on the basic body mass index. The person who has a very heavy body, more than 27 or 28 BMI, they should have a moderate weight gain of around 9 to 10 kilos. And as respect to that, those who are really underweight, where the BMI is less than 22, in fact, we allow them to have about 15 to 16 kilos, sometimes more than that. Mom's diet during pregnancy, it is interesting fact that it sets the stage for a child's food preferences also. So we counsel the mothers that whatever you want your child to eat later on, you should try and do that practice when you are actually expecting the baby. The pregnancy is the best time to start training these tiny test buds. So what is the medical care as an obstetrician we should offer? Good prenatal care. The first visit is basically for 3 things: to confirm pregnancy, to confirm whether the pregnancy is viable. We have beta HCG monitoring along with the transvaginal sonography, and to rule out whether there are any associated medical conditions. Most important out of them is the vitamin D deficiency, thyroid, whether it is a hypothyroidism, or sometimes they have thalassemia, which is a genetic problem. So and very rarely we do the test for the VDRL, just to rule out that there is no past history of syphilis. But right now the syphilis is rarely found in our population. But as a protocol, we do CPC, blood group RH, so we should know whether the RH negative or positive mother is, the thyroid profile, vitamin D, and thalassemia, that is hemoglobin electrophoresis. Particularly if she gives a history in a particular community, then we do the thalassemia test for both the partners. It's a must in the first trimester itself, which will give a lot of guidance for the next antenatal care. The woman should always be regularly counseled to take the antenatal visits, at least 5 visits, I always tell them. First in the first trimester, second after the NT scan and the dual marker, third is around the anomaly scan, that is 20 weeks, and later on 2 visits in the around the 7th and 8th month and the 9th month, if they can't have every 3 weeks visit. The ideal is up to from 3 to 4 weeks visit interval is ideal. But in case they can't really reach the doctor for any problem, then at least 5 visits are must. Those who don't get regular prenatal visit, it is always observed that it is inadequate weight gain. So many complications are missed out, particularly the rise in the blood pressure and sometimes the gestational diabetes. So regular prenatal visit, they should be counseled right at the first attendance at the hospital. Now we are going to take this a little later, but I just want to run through some micronutrients before I tell you in detail about the diet. There are certain foods the pregnant lady should avoid, particularly the raw meat, because there is a chance of intrauterine infection like torch. Liver, sushi, and raw eggs, particularly in mayonnaise, they should be avoiding. Soft cheeses that also have got sometimes unpasteurized milk, and sometimes it can be a factor for the food poisoning. Unpasteurized milk, unpasteurized animal products, and fish, particularly when there is a high chance of a high percentage of mercury in those fish. Now, during pregnancy, the body needs more water than usual. So stay hydrated. It will definitely reduce your bladder infection, chances of hemorrhoids, constipation, excessive swelling over the body, and it actually improves the chances of getting a good amniotic fluid volume in the baby. Particularly if she has fever, vomiting, diarrhea, then further increase in the water is important. So average about 1 to 1.5 liters, or in the glasses about 10 to 12 glasses of liquid, which may include water, soup, juices, at least that much should be their intake. About the omega-3, this I will always tell in detail. These are the building blocks of the fetal brain and retina. It actually determines the length of the gestation, that it reduces the preterm labor chances, and also for the mother, it prevents postnatal depression. The daily allowance is 200 milligram. What are the sources? The natural sources are most of the time the fish like salmon, sea bass, oysters, eggs also. And vegetarian sources, the best sources flax seeds, avocados, walnuts, and some algae. Actually, why the fish is rich in omega-3 or these fatty acids? Because they are fed on the algae which is found in the seawater. So always remember, even if you are a vegetarian person, you can have very rich omega-3 fatty acids through these sources. And suppose you are having a low DHA levels in the pregnancy, then you can always supplement it with 5 gram of a pill. That is, that fish oil has got a combination of EPA and DHA. There are 3 omega fatty acid: DHA, EPA, and ALA. So total together they have that is very nicely contained in the fish oil. Now, how does it affect the baby? It is seen that low DHA level in pregnancy is associated with the risk of autism and attention deficit in the children later on. Coming to iron, prevalence of iron deficiency anemia is most common in India, which is as high as 60% as compared to 10% of women population in USA. The risk of the iron deficiency will increase in pregnancy because, number one, it's a hemodilution, so that the plasma volume will increase much more than the RBC volume. In spite of that, suppose that the diet doesn't contain enough iron, then the hemoglobin can really reduce by 2 to 3 grams almost in the first trimester, and sometimes till 32 weeks it can reduce up to 4 grams than the initial level. So a person, whenever she comes for your antenatal visit, see to it that the first CBC you should see how much is the basic hemoglobin level, and accordingly advise them with the diet first. And what are the diet sources? There are heme iron and the non-heme iron. So let us see those. The daily allowance of the iron is 30 to 60 milligram plus folic acid 400 microgram or 0.4 milligram. The natural sources which I was telling for a non-veg eater is a heme iron, that is red meat, poultry, seafood, which is more easily available than the non-heme iron, which are excellent in nuts, beans, green veggies, and whole grains. Suppose by any chance the absorption is not proper and you are not gaining enough iron and enough pickup of the hemoglobin within 6 to 8 weeks of the second visit, then please start the oral iron supplementation and monitor her CBC. If it is still not picking up, you just take a hematologist advice, rule out thalassemia minor or thalassemia trait, and monitor the serum ferritin levels as well as the TIBC. The role of injectable iron only will come whenever there is a sufficient dose of oral iron given to the patient and still it is refractory to that kind of treatment. Always remember, whenever you are giving oral the iron injection or oral iron to the thalassemia people, see the ferritin level and TIBC so that the overloading of the iron should be avoided. Particularly when they are taking the oral iron preparation, avoid antacids, caffeine, milk and eggs with that iron supplement medicine, and encourage any kind of citrus juices like vitamin C tablet or orange juice or lime juice, which will improve the absorption of the oral iron. Folic acid, we are all aware, it is a definite ingredient right from the preconception period till the first 3 months, because the most of the times the organogenesis and the brain development will be maximum in the first 3 months. One definite a little insight about the folic acid I will tell you, that usually the anemia is a mixed kind of picture. It is iron deficiency with folic acid and B12 deficiency. So apart from the brain development which folic acid contributes, it contributes to the prevalence of anemia in pregnancy as well. Secondly, whenever the folic acid supplement is given, double the supplement is required for particularly 3 to 4 indications. Number one, twin pregnancy. Number two, those who have past history of neural tube defects like hydrocephalus, spina bifida in previous pregnancy. Number three, those who are taking anti-epileptic medicines. Always remember to take in the history in any medical disease they are taking treatment for. And sometimes they are on psychiatric medicines, sometimes they are on anti-epileptic medicines, and particularly warfarin sodium, they really need very high dose of folic acid to avoid neural tube defects in the baby. So longer the duration of the supplementation, it has been seen that it is a better birth outcome with the less risk of gestational diabetes. The preterm birth is also always associated less when there is folic acid supplementation, or the folic acid deficiency can give rise to preterm birth. About zinc. Zinc is a very good micronutrient for preventing infection. So a combination of the supplement which has got iron, folic acid and zinc, one should encourage apart from whatever the natural source of zinc are there. We are going to have lot of questions about the micronutrients in the interactive session. So I'll run through my slides. I'll just give a highlight of my presentation and then we can go to the interactive session. Iodine deficiency, the WHO has, WHO and UNICEF also have recommended universal salt iodization as a global strategy. That is to prevent the cretinism, congenital abnormalities, abortions, stillbirths in the women. And because of the global strategy of iodization, most of the iodized salt, if it is used, then there is less risk of cretinism and the associated problems. And iodine deficiency is not usually seen so many women in urban areas, but always discourage use of non-iodized salt, which many people call as rock salt, or the salt which is easily available in the villages also. But that is, if it is not iodized, that's not the right way to use the salt, because with the salt, automatically the iodine deficiency can be corrected. The daily allowance of iodine is 150 micrograms per day. Second, another important nutrient is selenium. It is optimal concentration in the body can cause good stimulation of the female fertility. So it is actually useful for the successful conception as well as the successful development of the fetus. The hypertensive pathologies like PET, that is preeclampsia, can be avoided if it is adequately given in the first and the second trimester. Now, vitamin D. As you all know, vitamin D and the calcium, they go hand in hand. Vitamin D deficiencies can really have a high risk of gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, preterm births, and low birth weight. So the supplementation has to be done. Now, how to do it and how much to do it? The basic required should be around 25 for vitamin microgram, that is for vitamin D3. If it is really low, sometimes it is less than 10, then how much is the dose required? That is with around 4,000 international units per day will really give you adequate dose. Now, most of the calcium supplements, they have usually 200 to 400 milli international units every day. So ideally, if she's taking that kind of calcium supplement, then you have to give every 2 weeks one bolus dose of oral vitamin D, which could be any kind of vitamin D. Now the nanotechnology is better absorbed, and that contains a bolus dose of 60,000 units. So the way which I told you, calculation if we goes, then it is every 15 days, then it comes to around 40,000 to 50,000 in 15 days. So similarly, if she's taking around 200 to 400 international units in her regular calcium tablet, then it is all the time required that only once in 15 days, the vitamin D bolus doses are required. But suppose she is having a good vitamin D level initially, then we can always refer it to once a month rather than once in 15 days. And as I told you, the calcium and the vitamin D goes hand in hand. The calcium supplementation also is important, and I would like to share some very basic principle with my friends, that suppose there is a calcium deficiency, then it stimulates your parathyroid secretion, which in turn increases the intracellular calcium level. And once it increases, it can increase the contractility of the smooth muscle, so which is at the level of the placental bed. So it increases the resistance towards the placental blood flow, and sometimes that is a major reason for having the intrauterine in placental insufficiency, which results in the fetal growth restriction. Also, apart from that, if there is a calcium deficiency, it increases the renin from the kidneys because of the vasoconstriction of the smooth muscles, and then it can cause sodium and fluid retention, and automatically in turn it will result into the mild to moderate preeclampsia. So preeclampsia, as you are all aware, increases the resistance at the placental blood flow and reduces the placental nutrition towards the baby. So that will cause both fetal growth restriction as well as the preeclampsia. So now you know that how much calcium is really having an excellent role in our good antenatal practice. So how much calcium is required? 500 to 700 grams per day. Apart from that, all the dairy products, all the products which are very rich in calcium, like ragi, oranges, drumstick leaves or drumstick nuts, all the kinds of nuts like walnuts, they are all rich in calcium. Suppose she can't tolerate milk, then she can have dahi, she can have buttermilk, she can have paneer. So some kind of dairy products which will really replenish the requirement of calcium. As far as the supplements are concerned, calcium citrate or calcium carbonate, both are equal, but calcium carbonate is relatively economical. So whenever there are the financial issues, then you should always prefer the calcium carbonate molecule. Now, this I will always share with you, which actually has a complete package of the nutrition for the mother. It has an adequate amount of calcium, magnesium, zinc, vitamin D3, and methylcobalamin, that is B12, and L-methyl folate, that is an active form of folic acid. So once you take this, most of the tablets, multiple tablets can be avoided for the patient, and that's a big bonus to her. Vitamin B, we just discussed B12 and folic acid. So I'll go through vitamin C. Just remember, those who have vitamin C deficiencies, either they will have bleeding gums or some kind of dental problems. And sometimes it increases the risk of preterm labor and premature rupture of membrane. Vitamin K, it is usually synthesized in our body by liver, but suppose it is deficient, then it's a very nano amount, it's a very micro amount that is required. But particularly in neonates, Dr. Zog will definitely tell you why vitamin K is required and how it will actually protect our babies. Copper is another micronutrient which will always improve the neurological development of the baby. Now, apart from these micronutrition, the exercises are extremely important for a better digestion, for a better muscular tone of the babies, for the mother, so that she can have a vaginal birth exercises, which will increase naturally the chances of vaginal delivery. And most of our patients are working women. They sometimes sit for 8 to 10 hours. So they can always have a lot of problems due to the prolonged sitting hours, like heartburn, acidity, burping, indigestion, constipation, and backache, also the cramps in the legs. So regular exercise has to be a part of their daily schedule to avoid all these things. As soon as they turn up to 34 weeks, we always encourage them to have all the vaginal birth exercises, like this lady is doing the butterfly, then they can do with the ball, or they can do the squats with help of the family member, and that prevents unnecessary indications for the cesarean section. This is most important, particularly in modern age. Always stop smoking, having alcohol, any kind of alcohol for that matter, and any kind of tobacco. Even if you are not taking doing the smoking, but a lot of tobacco chewing is seen, and that is equally dangerous. Don't drink alcohol before and during pregnancy and also breastfeeding. And that fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, everybody knows, and that is a very high percentage of alcohol, those who take more than 3 to 4 times in a week. And smoking always increases the risk of premature birth, miscarriages, and other poor outcome of the baby. Flu vaccination, always we encourage around 24 to 26 weeks the influenza vaccination. So it will protect the mother from getting influenza always, and help the baby also before the birth. The stress always has a major impact on the fetal growth restrictions. So they should have adequate sleep, at least 7 hours. Try to sleep on the left side to improve the blood flow, at least in advanced pregnancy. In the early pregnancy, it doesn't matter much, but whenever they turn on the left side, the gravid uterus, which is pressing on the inferior vena cava, that pressure is released, and that's why it improves the blood flow towards the baby. Now, when should you call the doctor? If there is any leaking, unusual bleeding, if there is sudden swelling in the face, hands and fingers, sudden headache which is long lasting, sometimes associated vomiting, you have high grade fever or chills, if you have a lot of discomfort and pain in the lower abdomen, it could be a premature pain or it could be a false labor pain, but please call the doctor and take her advice. If you are not getting enough fetal movements, we always counsel them for a DFMC after 34 weeks. DFMC is daily fetal movement count. So that has to be done every day without fail after breakfast or after lunch. They have to just monitor the fetal movement for next 4 hours. If that is more than 4 movements, which actually means that there is more than 1 movement in an hour, that means the baby is really in a good shape. Suppose the movements are much less than that, then they should contact the doctor and we will do the necessary investigation to know whether the baby is in jeopardy. So adverse health outcomes for the gestational micronutrient deficiency, we just discussed, it can result into miscarriage, stillbirth, birth defects, small size, that is small birth weight babies, and the premature babies. But even if they are not short term, sometimes the long term sequelae are more dangerous, like the altered growth, the body composition is altered, they can actually have pulmonary and immune deficiency problems, and most important, the pure neurodevelopment and the cognition delays. So now, once the successful delivery happens, a very short note about breastfeeding. Everybody knows that is exactly the right diet and the right feeding for the baby than any other formula milk. So it's a complete natural way. It provides the health benefits for first 6 months. It is definitely encouraged, and actually, if possible, they encourage the AAP, that is American Academy of Pediatrics. Always, even the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, they encourage till at least 1 year of the baby's age, that is infant. Secondly, why it is important? Because let us see how it is done. There are 3 basic hormones. Estrogen will improve the growth of the breast tissue. Prolactin will increase the stimulation of the alveoli and thereby milk. Oxytocin is responsible for the let go reflex. That is, in the posterior pituitary, it will just stimulate the oxytocin and it squeezes the milk into the duct. And it has a definite advantage for the mother also, that whenever you are feeding, automatically the uterus will contract and the excessive bleeding is prevented. So it is another natural way to prevent the postpartum hemorrhage. Cortisol also is responsible for the production of prolactin, and hence the mother should be very relaxed so that the cortisol level is adequate and she can actually breastfeed very successfully. Benefits, everybody knows, it is adequate for hydration, protects from the infection because of the IgA antibodies, protects from the allergies, and it promotes the bonding with the baby. So this is something for the baby. The advantages are: prevents diarrhea, ear infection, pneumonia, asthma, cuts the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, lowers the risk of obesity because that's an ideal carbohydrate and protein and fat combination. For the mother, it has a definite advantage of it reduces the cancer of the breast as well as the ovary. prevents postpartum depression, because you have lot of rewards and lot of bonding with the baby. So there, the postpartum blues are definitely reduced, and it reduces by the type 2 diabetes, even if you have gestational diabetes, because that's the best way to consume the calories. So you will not have unnecessary excessive insulin resistance developing in the postpartum period, and it reduces stress. So the nutrition, it is perfect food. As you can see, the animal milk protein actually is easy to digest in the human milk. The water is enough in the human milk, but in animal it is extra. Anti-infective properties are only present in the human milk, and it is a actually milk which is very, very different for every day. The formula milk from the day 3 will be same as the whatever is the milk at the age of 3 months, but the breast milk is actually ingeniously different every single day, adapting to the changing needs of the baby. So hence, always remember to improve the breast milk and the breast milk practices in your clinical practice. And barriers to the bonding are sometimes the bottle is a big barrier. There is less skin to skin contact when the baby is bottle fed, less eye contact also, and the hormonal connection is lost. So you will be surprised to know that exclusively breastfed in India right now up to 6 months are only 55%. And within the first hour, that is the golden period, is only 41%. And here I would proudly say that we started this initiative way back in 2017, where we actually trained our resident doctors, our nurses, that is those who are in the maternity ward, those who are in the labor room, as well as those who were attending in the OT. So whatever may be the mode of the delivery, first hour of the delivery, which could be a vaginal or the cesarean section, the mothers were motivated initially before the pregnancy, before the delivery only, during the pregnancy, that you should be really breastfeeding as soon as possible. And then the staff and my resident doctors were always actively involved in giving the first initial breastfeed to the baby. So which was earlier in our hospital also 41% of initial breastfeeding, we could achieve it more than 75%. The retrospective study we started right from 2017 to 2020, and then this was taken notice by various medias and other journals also, and our study is continuing from 75% ahead. We have an aim of 100%, unless the babies are sick, unless the babies are preterm, they have asphyxia, or they need premature baby unit immediately, we always see to it. And sometimes the mothers are also sick, that they are having severe preeclampsia. So for them, it's an exception. But otherwise, all the pregnant ladies, we encourage them to give the breastfeed within an hour. Now, about high-risk pregnancies, I'm just giving you a small, my experience at Nanavati. The number of high-risk pregnancies we handle a lot, because being a tertiary care center, it is a referral hospital. So for last about 1 to 1.5 years, we analyzed and audited the about 250 high-risk pregnancies, those who were sometimes previous fetal losses, moderate to severe PET, that is preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, and those who were diagnosed at fetal growth restriction. So the average age of gestation for the delivery for all of them, all 250, was 36 to 38. So we could stretch them from whatever gestation they came, with various medical treatment, as well as a thorough monitoring with the help of obstetric Doppler, the NST facility, so that they will avoid the double burden, that is the prematurity as well as the small for dead babies, that is a growth restriction. The challenges were the control of sugar, control of hypertension, monitoring of the interval growth, and sometimes tocolysis, those who go into preterm labor. The mode of delivery we could achieve was 65% vaginal births and 35% cesarean section, and mostly 99% were emergency section, not the elective section. And the reasons were most probably the fetal distress or the non-progress of labor after sufficient trial. The average birth weight was 2.5 kg. So conclusion is a vigilant monitoring with an excellent team of your colleagues, that is sonologists, who really do good amount of obstetric Doppler and tell you how to go ahead, will be a basic guidance for you. Apart from that, the resident doctors, the nurses who are taking good care of the mothers, and not but the least, the NICU facilities, which actually can give an excellent optimum result in our high risk pregnancies. So this is my take home message. The journey from the conception to the parturition is complex. One must insist on regular antenatal visits, time to time monitor about the fetal growth clinically, and with the scan, make a significant difference to the mother's age as well as the fetal health. And emotional and compassionate counseling is the key for every expecting mother. We together can definitely cut down the prevalence of small growth restricted babies. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for highlighting the role of the important and the prime ingredients in the pregnancy journey so beautifully. And also thank you for highlighting some of the exercise tips, some do's and don'ts, and touching on the area of vaccination and of course the stress management, which becomes utmost important in this modern era. And we are very happy to see your experience at Nanavati Hospital. So thank you so much, ma'am. We would like to invite and welcome our senior doctor today, Dr. Pramod Job. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I will start sharing the screen.
Yes.
And then okay, very good. Okay, so we will be discussing some aspects of the first 1000 days. And you can see that I have no other degrees, but every pediatrician has to have a degree, and he should be a big pediatrician. Okay, you know what is a big pediatrician? Big pediatrician is the one who has knowledge about breastfeeding and nutrition, that is B, I, that is immunization and infectious diseases, and G, that is growth and development. So all these three are the only things which are required in the first 1000 days. And Dr. Gayatri has already told you the meaning of 1000 days, and these are very important. And she used the word window of opportunity. That means those 1000 days is a very small period. So the pregnancy and the first 2 years is such a small period that you have to be very active, because this has long-term implications. So why we are discussing these first 1000 days? Because it is the foundation, basis. Okay, in Marathi we say paya, foundation. Okay, so if the foundation is good, the building will be good, and that is very important. And then undernutrition, as we all know, is the leading cause of death in children. And once these consequences are there, particularly related to undernutrition, they are irreversible. For example, iron deficiency. If the child develops iron deficiency, becomes pale, hemoglobin goes down, you know, you can correct it. Hemoglobin can come from 6 to 7, 8, 9, 10. But the changes that iron deficiency has created many times are not reversible. And look at this photograph. You know, this photo in the male is a Pulitzer Prize winning photograph. It's a prize winning photo, and it was taken in 1994 during a famine which occurred in Sudan. Okay, a very poor country. And the picture depicts that a child who is famine stricken, he is crawling, okay, crawling towards a food camp which was set up by the United Nations, which was a kilometer away. And can you see a vulture waiting for the child to die so that it can eat the child? Okay, this picture was really shocking for the entire world, and nobody knows as to what happened to the child, including the photographer Kevin Carter, who left the place as soon as the photograph was taken. And 3 months later, this photographer committed a suicide due to depression. So my dear friends, remember that malnutrition, maybe, you know, it's not so visible in our parts, in Pune and Mumbai and the major metropolis, but it still exists in many parts. And it is said that the world's hunger is getting ridiculous. There is more fruit in the rich man's shampoo than in the poor man's plate. Okay, and we are facing a double burden of malnutrition. On one side, we have malnutrition. On the other side, we have chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes. And many of us are aware of a paradox which is called as Barker hypothesis. That means those babies who are small at birth, those who are IUGR less than 2 kg, suddenly if they get a lot of food to eat when they grow up, then their pancreatic ducts and the hormonal status and all are not in a position to pick it up. And these malnourished babies, okay, they develop diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. This was put forth by Dr. Barker. And that's why it's a very, very paradox thing in the medical field. Now, remember, we learned pediatrics by saying kwashiorkor and marasmus. Kwashiorkor is a child who is bloated and edematous, and marasmic child is stunted and so on and so forth. But Professor Michael Golden, he is the one who told the concept of type 1 and type 2 nutrients. There are 40 nutrients. And even if one is deficient, the person will not be healthy and he cannot resist the disease. So let us see what are these nutrients. In general, those vitamins like vitamin B and iron, iodine and calcium and folate, these are type 1, okay? And type 2 are like, sodium and potassium, magnesium and zinc, okay? I have just colored these with a blue color so that you remember which are important. Now, I will tell you that all these items are very important, very important. And those who develop type 1 deficiency, the picture on the top, there is a horizontal line, and above you will find type 1 deficiency, which creates the problem. This child is not stunted. The height has not gone down from left to right. But what has happened is that the girl has become edematous, okay, and the lower one who has type 2 deficiency has become stunted, okay. Remember, whenever a child loses weight, suppose a child is 10 kg and after 2 months he is 8 kg, it means that it is wasting. Wasting usually indicates acute malnutrition. Child did not get anything to eat. COVID pandemic. Children are at home. The father doesn't have any work. Mother doesn't have any work. Malnutrition because of pure starvation. This is a major problem going on in the world at this moment. Though we are discussing management with remdesivir and tocilizumab, the real problem is wasting and stunting. And my dear friends, the lower one is showing stunting, and this is related to type 2 nutrients. Okay, so remember that protein energy malnutrition is now a term to be replaced by micronutrient deficiency. Please remember that. And also remember that these type 2 nutrients, they, in case if they're deficient, they, the tissue repair and the growth stops. The child takes long time for convalescence, and the child is in negative balance for all the type 2 nutrients and remains anorexic. We used to say marasmic child, also has some features. A kwashiorkor child also has some features. But remember that now it's the type 1 and the type 2 nutrients. I will come to these nutrients either during the talk or maybe during discussion. Remember some important points, these nutrients, because we may not get time to discuss. See, remember iron. In case of children, particularly in the first 1 or 2 years, many grandmothers, they come to me at the end of 1 year and say, Dr. Joe, your treatment is very nice. And my grandson has become very fair. Okay. In Marathi, they say there's a ranga uzalda. He has become very fair. Okay. In fact, it is not the fair color, but it is the iron deficiency which the child has developed, because milk does not have iron, very little iron. That too, till 6 months, till the baby is breastfed, availability of iron is good. But after 6 months, milk continues and the child becomes white, and grandparents feel that the child has really become fair in color. So remember the short form Jaggery. Jaggery is good, okay, in Marathi. Now Jaggery has some alphabets. So J stands for Jaggery. A stands for ascorbic acid, vitamin C. Whenever I take my meals, I keep vitamin C lemon squeezed into water and drink it intermittently while I'm taking the meals so that the iron absorption is better. So vitamin C improves iron absorption. Then there is G. These are the green vegetables. Next G is the richest source of iron, and that is the garden cress seeds. Okay. For those who do not know the meaning, it is aliv. Okay. During Diwali days when we were children, we used to put this aliv. These are, small little millets like mohori. And then, these are the ones which have 100 milligrams per 100 gram of aliv, that is garden cress seeds. Then there is E. These are the extraneous sources like the iron tablets, which are a rich source. Okay, probably they are the ones. In case if you give iron in the form of sulfate, the absorption is the best. And then next one is the raisins, R. And last Y I have replaced by I, that is the iron vessels. So cooking the food in the iron vessels gives a lot of iron. So that is about iron. And please see that the hemoglobin of an adolescent girl is 12/12. At the age of 12, hemoglobin has to be 12. When the girl becomes pregnant at 18, 20, 21, hemoglobin has to be 12. Okay. The weight has to be minimum 45 kg and the BMI has to be between 18 and 22. These three important parameters for a girl to become pregnant. Very important. Okay. Next one in the list, you can see folate. Okay. Folate is folic acid and it is required for the development of the neural tube. Okay. This neural tube development starts in the periconceptional period. That means when the lady is getting pregnant. Now, really after marriage, one doesn't know when she would get pregnant. Okay. And after 3 months, it is very late to give folic acid. So the suggestion is that, you know, what I do is I suggest a folic acid mala, you know, along with the Mangal Sutra, the married girl must get a mala, a chain, which has all folic acid tablets, 60 tablets. Okay. And she has to start taking it right from the night of the marriage because she doesn't know when she would get pregnant. And it is the periconceptional period when folic acid is required, my dear friends. That's why, please remember, folic acid, no role after 3 months. Okay. For other things, it's okay. And folic acid, not only for the woman, also for the husband. Remember that, because the development of the sperm and a good sperm also requires good DNA. We usually discuss about maternal malnutrition, but nobody discusses malnutrition of the father. So remember, the sperm also has to be of good quality. So both of them have to have folic acid. Remember that. Vitamin A and other products we'll discuss in a minute. So come to the children who are likely to become malnourished and those who are low birth weight at the birth, who are less than 2 kg, those who are girls, because, you know, because of gender bias in our community, girls always eat the last and they are poorly fed, where there is no guidance, no counseling about breastfeeding. Okay. So all these are the ones who are at a risk of getting malnourished. And remember that the terminology of acute malnutrition has been changed to severe acute malnutrition. Okay. And there are different criteria for classification. The most important one, of course, is the mid upper arm circumference. If it is less than 11.5, okay, then please see that the child is, you know, not going into any complications like hypoglycemia or some other complications which are very, very important in severe acute malnutrition. Okay. Right. Now, remember that in case of this discussion on 1000 days, the profound impact on the child's ability to grow, learn, and rise out of poverty is also important. And whenever a child is malnourished in these 1000 days, it's not only the child, but the society also, you know, has long-term impacts on the health, stability, and the prosperity. Okay. And those who are malnourished in utero, they have a higher risk of dying in infancy, and they are more likely to face lifelong cognitive deficits. Cognitive means understanding, knowledge. So when they are sitting in the school, they don't understand what the teacher is teaching them. Okay. And remember that at the time of birth, this skin to skin contact is something extremely important. You can see the twins which are taken by the mother and she is taking them very close. And on the right side, there is father. So this is kangaroo mother care on the left side. And the other one is the kangaroo father care. Okay. Now, just remember that the breast milk has human milk oligosaccharides. The one I have written on the left side. These are oligosaccharides which are very, very, very typical for human beings. Okay. And they help in the growth of some good microbes like the bifidobacteria and the lactobacilli. And they are the ones which ultimately lead to increase in the IgA and the anti-inflammatory effect. These human milk oligosaccharides are unique for the human beings. Okay. No formula can imitate HMOs and no animal can imitate human milk oligosaccharides. We always discuss about the formula and the overweight. And our journal Pediatrics, a publication of American Academy of Pediatrics, says that breastfeeding is protective against overweight. Even if you give a single feeding of formula, it changes the microbiota. And that's why please keep away from formula feeding. Do not even give a single feed of formula. Okay. And this microbiota in the first 1000 days is extremely important. Okay. Right from birth, the baby has microbiota. It's a good microbe and it continues to develop up to 2 to 3 years. And at the age of 6 months, when the complementary feeding starts, it is the duty of every parent to include diversity of food. Remember, 4 different colors. The most important one at the age of 6 months is the orange color, the papaya, the mango, and the pumpkin, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next one is the green, which we discuss more often, green leafy vegetables. Okay. The red, like the beetroot, and the white, that is the milk or the egg white. So 4 different colors, 4 times a day. Okay. And all these are in the 4 different groups, like the proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and the micronutrients and vitamins. So remember this formula of 4-4-4 from 6 months onwards, which gives diversity of the microbiota. Okay. And this has to continue lifelong. This has to continue lifelong. No antibiotics in the first 4 years. Definitely not in the first 2 years unless indicated, because it produces dysbiosis. And dysbiosis means the disturbance in the microbial system. And this child can have long-term impact. We will not discuss much on the microbiota, but it's an important part in the first 1000 days. And that's why I always say, the famous dialogue, मेरे पास गाड़ी है, बंगला है, दौलत है, शोहरत है, तेरे पास क्या है? So the brother says, भाई मेरे पास unique microbiome है. Okay, everyone has a unique microbiome, and we have to preserve it. We have to see that we unnecessarily do not indulge into formula, antibiotics, foods like Uncle Chips and junk food, because that doesn't lead to healthy microbiota. And the importance of microbiome is coming up slowly. And the brain, remember that 90% of the brain develops in the first 2 years of life, almost 2 years. Though we say that it develops before the age of 5, it develops to a great extent up to 2 years. And there is branching of the brain cells. Can you see this branching? And slowly and gradually, the development of the brain depends on so many nutrients. And in case if the nutrition is poor, then the branching is less, the connections are less, and the chap has a lesser IQ. That's why up to 5 years, this is under construction. You can see the building is getting constructed. Okay. This is not the final shape of the building. Similarly, right from the fetal life, the first 1000 days, remember, if you tackle them properly, can change the entire life of the child. Okay. Remember that the stunted children appear normal for many people. We say, are short, stunted. In Marathi, we say butki. We take it as a normal, but it is not so. That's the impact of the first 1000 days. And the malnutrition which occurred in the initial period. I told you, stunting indicates long-term malnutrition, and it's an intergenerational cycle. See, adolescent girl who low weight and low height will lead to small adult woman. She will give rise to a low birth weight baby. Again, this child will continue to have growth failure, and this cycle continues. And my dear friends, last few points, remember that this is not only nutrition. 1000 days is nurturing care. What is nurturing care? It is responsive feeding. When you are feeding, you have to speak. Okay. So at the time of, even during pregnancy, the music and other things which are heard by the mother, from the 4th month of pregnancy, the baby can listen. So put on good tunes. Husband and wife should not fight. And, all these problems will create an impact on the baby. At the time of birth, I have seen so many mothers, they want to speak into the ear of the baby, and they will take the name of the God, whatever religion it may be. Okay. And then the child will start developing the senses. During breastfeeding, it's the best opportunity to speak to the child. When the baby is getting the breast milk, the mother looks at the baby. The mother will talk to the baby. So the eye and the ear are stimulated. Baby gets the taste of the milk. So the taste buds are stimulated. The baby smells the breast and the milk. So the nose and the olfactory senses are stimulated, and the mother touches the baby. This is nurturing care. Okay. It's an important part of the first 1000 days, my dear friends. And when the complementary feeding starts, it's traditional to, speak and tell the stories. In Marathi, we tell them stories of cow and chew. Okay. So these are the stories which we must tell them, because this is the time, very limited period of 1000 days. Once this period goes, nothing can be done. Okay. And as I told you, during pregnancy, delivery, and breastfeeding and complementary feeding, you have to be very, very clear, because this opportunity to break the cycle is very small. And the impact of malnutrition during the critical 1000 days of pregnancy through 2 years is largely irreversible after that. So my dear friends, I stopped sharing my screen. I just wanted to highlight some important points, and we can have some questions from the audience. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, doctor, for highlighting the severity of malnutrition and the concept of first 1000 days and its impact on the longer term. So I must say that your talk was indeed very lively, energetic, and highly impressive with respect to your self-generated formulas of Jaggery, 12 by 12, and the four different colors of orange, green, red, and white. So thank you so much, Doctor. And now we'll get started with the panel discussion. So the first and the
Okay.
foremost, which we can put in this forum is, Doctor, we know that the maternal nutritional status is an important determinant of pregnancy outcomes. And as per the recent studies, 78.19% of the pregnant women are reported to be anemic, and around 60.45% pregnant women with BMI of 18.5 to 25. So, in accordance to this, low birth weight in India has been attributed to widespread maternal undernutrition. So, this highlights that the relationship of birth size and maternal nutrition is very critical. So, doctor, we want to know what's your advice on the best nutritional uptake for mother as well as baby in this first 1,000 days journey.
Yeah, the question is really important. We must highlight two things in this. Whenever the patient comes, or rather plans the pregnancy, we should assess her body mass index. So as I told you that the average body BMI or the body mass index is very easy to calculate, and as compared to the height and the weight, if the ratio shows that BMI is less than 20, always encourage them to have a better nutrition, and at least the BMI should be raised up to 21 to 22, which is an ideal BMI. If it's less than 20, that lady is herself is underweight, and naturally she will always have high chances of small for dead babies. That is number one. Secondly, the other part of the spectrum also you have to consider, that those who are overweight, obese, and really having all now hormonal disruptions like polycystic ovaries, those who actually come to me for the planning of the baby, we encourage to test for the insulin resistance, encourage them with all the healthy exercises and the diet schedules to reduce weight to a optimum level before they get pregnant, because overweight is equally dangerous like underweight. Secondly, those who actually come only before the pregnancy, they are not meeting us, and directly once she conceives, she comes. There also the same thing happens, that first the evaluation of the BMI is done, and as I told you in my presentation, the average weight gain we explain them right in the first visit. That first month to 5 months, there may be first 3 months weight loss because of the excessive vomiting, hyperemesis gravidarum, and lot of heartburn, which she is not, and lot of detest for the normal food. So she may lose about 2 to 2.5 kg, sometimes more also. She should hydrate herself this time, and at the 12 weeks of gestation, whatever is her weight gain, from there she has to replenish whatever she has lost plus 1 kg per month, because the baby's weight gain max to max is around 450 to 500 grams, the fetus, at the level of 20 weeks. After that, there is a takeoff stage. So she should have at least 1.5 to 2 kg weight gain. So overall, the weight gain happens to around 12 to 15 kilo in the average BMI women. But we can encourage more than 16 kilos also for a underweight woman, and restrict the weight gain up to 10 kg for those who are overweight.
So, ma'am, how do you feel the role of the calcium and vitamin D nutritional uptake in this tenure of pregnancy?
Calcium actually is important. Calcium and vitamin D3 preconceptually also is important. Fortification with folic acid is equally important, because as Dr. Zog said, that the mechanism of oogenesis and the spermatogenesis is equally important, and the quality of the eggs and the sperm totally depends upon the micronutrients in their body. So those who are planning for the babies, or rather they are coming for a treatment of primary infertility, we start omega-3 fatty acids and the folic acid and B12 supplementation to both the partners. That is number one. Secondly, vitamin D levels, vitamin D3 levels, you should be assessed for both the partners if required, but at least for the mother, those who have very low levels, they should replenish it with either the the supplements which is optimally tailored, not an excessive, because it is a fat soluble vitamin. So hypervitaminosis has to be avoided. It has to be at the optimum level of 25 to maximum 30. I have seen sometimes people really taking excess vitamins, and that is also equally harmful for the baby and the mother. So always remember all the fat soluble vitamins, that is vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D. K usually is synthesized in the body, but these three you should not excessively give to the mother. It has to be a very monitored and supervised treatment of the vitamin supplementation. However, the water soluble vitamins, that is all the B complex, vitamin C, you can definitely give and encourage through the natural sources as well as the supplements.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So,
The second part of your question, I'll just answer. This is about vitamin D. The calcium levels. In fact, I told you in detail how the calcium affects. Number one, the health of the mother, for the prevention of the preterm labor, for the prevention of gestational diabetes, for the prevention of the preeclampsia. Most important is it maintains the renin concentration. So renin secretion, if it is very well controlled, this RA system will not be activated, and she will not have excessive resistance at the placental circulation. So which will prevent for the mother excessive preeclampsia, and it will prevent the placental insufficiency.
Okay.
Yeah. And particularly for the babies, it is important that you provide them with frequency, diversity, and energy dense food. Okay. Frequency, I already told you, 4 times in a day. Diversity, that is 4 different colors. And energy dense. Energy density can be increased by addition of oils. Okay. Coconut oil, for example, it has medium chain triglycerides, and the absorption of any coconut oil product is very good. And that's why a baby who is malnourished usually gets benefit out of that. We are also discussing about the DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, okay, it's an omega-3 fatty acid, a polyunsaturated fatty acid, and that is usually present in the breast milk, okay, and that's why breast milk has to be given. It is also present in fish, and a community where they consume fish, it's a good thing. And flax seeds and nuts, they also have omega-3 fatty acids, and one should definitely do that. Also remember 3 things: the roots, the fruits, and the sprouts. Okay, roots means, say for example, carrot. Fruits we all know, and the sprouts also we know. So these 3 things have to be there in the diet of a child. Okay, and banana. So there are certain fruits, you know, like these are natural Tetra Paks. We only know Tetra Paks where mango drinks are available, but the natural Tetra Pak fruit is a banana, isn't it? So you should always consume fruits which are, you know, likely to be less infected. And remember that when the child is fed, there should not be any distraction. Okay, and many times, you know, children are distracted by the TV and so many other things. So these distractors should be stopped. At the time of breakfast, one should give idli. Idli usually is fermented, so there is good microbiome into this. Okay, even our sesame, teal, okay, it has good omega-3 fatty acids. Remember that. And remember that, you know, variety. Children always like variety. You know, they may eat something for 7, 8, 10 days, then they will stop eating. So I always tell the mothers, just as, you know, ladies always like to change the dress every day. They do not use the same dress every day. Similarly, a child doesn't like to have the same food every day, isn't it? So just as you want to change yourself every day, please see that the diet also changes every day. Okay, thank you.
Sir, in accordance to this concept, I have a concept in my mind about the food allergy, which forms near about 1 to 2% of the population, and because of which it leads to a psychiatric disorder of ADHD, that is attention deficit hypersensitivity disorder. So how well do you suggest, you know, the nutritional uptake or the diet control for such, patients?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. For that, actually, you should know what is attention span. Remember, the attention span of a child is age plus 5 minutes. Okay, so a 5-year-old child will have 5 plus 5, only 10 minutes attention span. But we want him to sit in the class for 40 minutes, which is not correct. Okay, so first be clear about what is attention deficit. Next thing is there are certain rules. Number 1, whatever the child is eating, first remove the food which is bad. Okay, for attention deficit. One is most important is sugar. White sugar, the level increases very fast, and then it comes down very fast. So when the child becomes hyper excited, the sugar level is very high. So change the simple carbohydrates with complex carbohydrates. So that is called as removing the bad food. Number 2 is replacing with healthy food, okay, like cereals and pulses. So replace. So remove, replace. Then repair with good supplement. Repair with good supplement. What is a good supplement? A probiotic and a prebiotic. Remember, the good microbiota, which has been damaged by the wrong type of food, has to be repaired. So please give supplementation of pre and probiotics and rebalance. Rebalance. So these 4 are the principles of attention deficit hyperactivity. Usually we discuss it with the parents. But remember, many children, they have chocolates and jellies and all, which are very rich sources of sugar, and that makes the child hyperactive. Okay. Remember, there are many food items which are connected with the concentration. Iron deficiency, remember, which is a major problem. Children many times are hyperactive and they do not concentrate on food, their studies. So whenever you supplement iron, please remember it is going to help these children. A lot can be discussed about attention deficit, but just remember some important points, and maybe at some other time we can discuss more about attention deficit and other psychological disorders. Yeah.
So this also takes us to the another question of the unintended pregnancy. So as per the statistics which we have, around 1/5 of the women have been reported with this unintended pregnancies, and these are associated with the maternal complications such as preeclampsia and postpartum preeclampsia. So, doctor, during your clinical practice, I guess you must have experienced such cases of preeclampsia which are related to the, especially the nutrient deficiency part. So, have you? I just want to know, doctor, how have you handled such cases with such complications?
Actually, that's a very common situation, and so many times the giving time to the patient while being having the consultation really gives you a very nice insight why the pregnancy is unintended. Number 1, whether she has any kind of emotional and psychological stress in her family or the extended family, or there can be different pressures, which is mainly the reason that she is actually not at comfort with this pregnancy. So in the counseling session, or sometimes even the antenatal visit, an experienced person can actually see that she's really not happy with the pregnancy. So there could be either that there is really a emotional stress in the family and she is not really prepared and somebody is forcing her to continue the pregnancy, or number 2, there can be actually a lot of fear in her mind that yes, I want the pregnancy, but will I be a good mother?
Right.
And that usually has lot of lack of confidence, lot of stress about the future. How will I raise the child? So in such situation, it can badly affect her health, in the sense that these people usually land up in hyperacidity. They land up in lack of sleep. They really land up in lot of hyperemesis, which naturally decreases the micronutrition and the microbial environment in their body. In turn, it will be naturally affecting the baby's growth. Secondly, they always have more stress related factors, and hence it can develop the mild to moderate to severe preeclampsia. Another group of women, I would always tell you that those who have fetal losses for some different reason, they may not be related to the maternal factor in particularly the case, but they always take a lot of pressure whenever they have this present pregnancy. And that is mainly the reason that they are always under so much anxiety, and that can be the major reason for the fetal growth restriction. So here, I was just trying to tell you that sharing with the patient and hand-holding with the patient and being compassionate counselor with the patient really makes a big difference for her medical treatment also. Apart from that, whatever micronutrients we are expected to give her through the natural sources should be stressed more rather than giving only the vitamin supplement. So that I always make it a point that so many natural resources, they are available, they are aware, but they don't have the complete knowledge that this can be easily swallowed. Like DHA, sometimes they feel it is something very different and totally unknown micronutrient. No, it is definitely available in our walnuts, which is easily possible in any household. Flax seeds, virgin coconut oil, It has got excellent omega-3 fatty acid. So those things which are easily available, and sesame seeds. So we have halim, those we actually make laddus out of all these three things, and it should be encouraged, and that will easily absorbed also rather than the chemical supplementation. So all this complete care, that is holistic approach to these patients, whether it is intended or unintended pregnancy, can make a big difference for the outcome of the pregnancy later.
Moreover, doctor, we have already seen now the diets are inadequate and there is always a micronutrient deficiencies which is seen in such cases. And there is a consequences on the longer term outcomes, and WHO is recommending the use of antenatal multiple micronutrient supplement. And the statistics which we have and the research study which we have says that the nutritional individual micronutrients such as zinc, vitamin B12 and vitamin D are deserving more attention for their potential to improve the outcome of the pregnancy. So doctor, we want to understand what is your take on this role of micronutrients in the pregnancy outcome with respect to vitamin B12, zinc, and of course vitamin D.
I always give them the basic 5 formula. Number 1, start with a folic acid fortification preconceptually, that is 3 months before you get pregnant. Continue for next 3 months. Even if you can't meet the doctor, that is all right, but you just take folic acid and B12. Number 2, if you are taking some medicines like anti-epileptic and suppose somebody has twins, the requirement will be double for folic acid. Number 3, the micronutrient which is most important is vitamin D and calcium. Many of them, they are aware, but how much to take the dose, that we have to tell them. And always, again, I will repeat, natural resources of calcium we always harp on, because that is the bioavailable calcium which is absorbed easily. It will never have any side effects like gastritis, indigestion, constipation, like some of the calcium supplements can give. Similarly, iron also, as I told you, 60% women are iron deficient. Most of the young girls, before they get married only, their hemoglobin is as low as 10 or even less than 10. And some of them, they suffer from puberty menorrhagia. So if every month they are losing blood, their iron levels are going to be low. We always tell them that there is going to be a hemodilution. At the end of the 32 weeks of pregnancy, your hemoglobin is going to go down by at least 2 to 3 grams. And if you don't take enough, it may go down by 4 to 5 grams. In this context, I must tell you that it is not only for the underprivileged or the low socioeconomic status, those who are having iron deficiency. We always say that they are overfed, but they are overfed with wrong food. So they may be eating a lot of food, but which is absolutely deficient in the right nutrition. So iron deficiency is common in all the socioeconomic strata of the women, and we have to really tackle it immediately as soon as the pregnancy is diagnosed.
Right. Okay. Ma'am, here I would also like to introduce this concept of the third wave, that is the immune system of the children getting affected. So we have seen this micronutrients are having the numerous roles in immune responses, and individual micronutrient deficiencies can lead to immunocompromise in the infants. So Dr. Pramod, I would like you to invite you to answer this question with respect to what is the impact of nutrition during this fetal and infant development, and how supplementation will improve the immune responses to these infections.
Okay, immunity has become a buzzword, and I thought we'll be asking something about immunity. And actually, the concept is not at all what you may say uniform in different pathies in medicine. But remember, there are two types of immunities. One is the one which is there right from birth. Okay, that is called as innate immunity, innate, right from birth. Okay, and there is another which is adaptive immunity. Adaptive is, once the person gets infected or gets a vaccine, then that's different. Anyway, we will not go into details. Just remember, there are certain important food items which are connected with the immunity. Number one is milk, and milk has a protein called casein. Okay, and casein proteins have another amino acid which is called arginine, which is required for immune regulation. Number one. There are whey proteins. Okay, whey proteins in the milk. And one of the whey proteins is alpha-lactalbumin, okay? And that acts as an antiviral agent. Number three, essential fatty acids, which we have been discussing. They also have a role in immunity. Number 4, vitamin A. We always give it to children who are having measles. Okay, so vitamin A has a role in the prevention of certain immune problems. And then zinc, which is useful in the prevention of respiratory infections. These are by and large the important items. Now, vitamin C and vitamin D, they also have a role. However, vitamin C has a role when it is given in grams. Okay, the daily requirement of vitamin C is different. One simple orange will be useful for giving you 1 day's requirement of vitamin C. But if you are sick with COVID-19, the dose required is in grams, 2 grams or 3 grams, and that too not orally, it is IV. Okay, remember that. And then vitamin D in the mother usually will prevent some important infections in the first year of life. It is said that vitamin D supplementation of the mother and a good level of the vitamin D at the time of birth and in infancy prevents bronchiolitis, which is a common respiratory infection. So there are various items which do produce good effect as regards the immunity. But I think we should not discuss it and stretch it beyond that, okay? Because many times, it's a correlation. It's not a causal relation. Correlation means the level of vitamin D was adequate, and on the other side, infections were less, okay? But no one is able to prove whether vitamin D is the main reason for prevention of recurrent infections and so on and so forth, okay? So many times these are correlations. Some of these, what you may say, things are not always proved scientifically, and one should be aware of the limitations of these studies also. But in case if certain things are not bad in general, if they are not going to harm, then there is no problem in promoting them. Okay, there are also some good things in Ayurveda which also can be promoted, provided they are substantiated by the experts from Ayurveda. Okay, however, we will not discuss it because that is not our domain.
So, sir and ma'am, both of you have already highlighted the poor nutrition in the first 1,000 days of the child's life might lead to some stunted growth, which is associated with impaired cognitive ability and reduced school and work performance. So, Dr. Jog, what kind of diet or what kind of nutrition would you really suggest for the physical or the skeletal and the cognitive development of the child during this first 1,000 days?
Yeah, already I have told a lot many things about this. So you should remember that the variety of the food, the density of the food, okay, these are extremely important. That means the caloric density, because if you see the calorie requirement of a 1-year-old child, it is 110 calories per kg. So if the average weight is about 10 kg, then it requires about 1100 to 1200 calories per day. But if you sit down and calculate the milk, the sugar, the chapati, the rice and dal, in the practice we see hardly it crosses 500 or 600 calories. Okay, so there is a daily gap of almost 500 to 600 calories. Okay, and this calorie gap is a major problem in our children. Okay, and that's why the variety of the food and the energy dense food is very important. Many times, mothers continue to give milk in the morning, milk in the afternoon, milk in the evening, milk at bedtime. In addition, she feeds on the breast. So ultimately, the baby gets only milk and nothing else. I told you milk is very poor source of iron, and milk is also not a very good source of vitamin D. And that's why we will have to supplement these things. Along with that, as the child starts growing, he looks at the father taking the carbonated drinks, the refined things, and the artificial sweeteners and the processed foods. These are CRAP, the crap foods, okay? Carbonated, refined, artificial sweeteners, and processed foods. So these crap foods go in the system, and then the immunity also goes down. And that is why whenever you are dealing with a child, who is in the growing age, many times, when they understand, I tell them that look at the flag of India. The flag of India has 3 colors. The topmost is the orange, the lowermost is the green, and the middle one is the white color. So give all the things which are orange, I told you, green, the green vegetables, and milk and egg white. And centrally, there is a wheel, which has some spokes in that. So that is the food plate. So take all the food items in the food plate and eat with your fingers. These are the spokes, okay? Eat with. But one small little smart child whose right brain was very active, he said, Dr. Jog, you are saying that the central, wheel is not a wheel, and the spokes are not the spokes. These are the Maggi noodles, okay? So he floored me totally. And remember, our children are quite creative, but I keep telling them all these stories. And remember that all the colors have to be there. So the variety, the frequency, and energy density, that is the formula. Here we cannot say everything about the sources of zinc and sources of magnesium and all that. It's beyond the purview of this program. But the principles have to be known to the people, so that they will implement it in their day-to-day life. Yeah, thank you. Please unmute.
Please unmute, Sheetal.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, thank you, sir. Ma'am, lastly, I would like to touch upon this concept of, the doubling rate of the cesareans, which we have seen worldwide. So, ma'am, what is your take on this as to how we should minimize this rate? And we have also heard about your case studies, which you have conducted at your hospital regarding this case.
Yeah. See, the rate of C-sections, definitely I agree that it has increased. And we as obstetricians are equally responsible, but it is only a 50% responsibility. 50% responsibility is with the parent, with the pregnant mothers. I'll tell you how. Number one, the pregnant mothers normally now they don't have more than 1 or 2 children, so they know sometimes only one child. So they know that whatever is to be has to be happening, it's only once or twice, or sometimes only once, and they are mentally prepared to plan the pregnancy after a very long gap. Actually, the scenario in urban area is completely different from the village scenario. So right now, cesarean sections are definitely on the rise more in the urban areas than the village areas. The factors for a rise in the urban areas are different than the village areas. So we will just discuss this for the urban areas. So that's why they feel now we have planned it and we don't want any kind of pain. We only want gain.
Right.
So we have to really counsel so many times that there can't be a gain unless you have pain. Number one. Secondly, whenever they are actually, due to the pressure of the family and particularly the husband, they are saying, no, I want vaginal birth. But whenever the period actually comes at around 34 weeks, when we tell them that, yes, you have to really be physically active, that is where they lack. That's why the pelvic floor muscles, the thighs, the back muscles, they are not trained enough to have the smooth pelvic floor muscle smoothing, so that the passage, the birth passage, right from the pelvic brim towards the perineum can be enhanced, can be speeded up only if the person is active. Why there were so many vaginal births earlier? Because they used to do a lot of hard work till almost they used to go into labor. As compared to that, because we have become very prosperous, there are a lot of facilities. So most of them, they are not physically that active. So here our role comes into play, that we have to really tell them that pregnancy is an active treatment and you have to contribute actively. We are not really only going to give the supplements and medicines. So if they actively contribute, then they will look after their diet. They will not have excessive weight gain. They will not develop complications of gestational diabetes and preeclampsia, because once they follow the proper diet instructions, they will really not have excessive weight gain and water retention. So once those complications are not there, they can be physically active to go for the vaginal birth exercises. And I can tell you, I have to really lay stress on the expecting mother as well as their family, that be prepared mentally, that it can't happen like a magic. They really always applaud in Europe and US that most of them, the deliveries are vaginal. That you must have heard. But then there the labor is prolonged sometimes for 18 to 20 hours. And they just don't have a protocol to intervene unless there is a acute fetal distress. This is not the case in India. People have always got unnecessarily emotionally so excited, hyper excited, that even if it crosses about 6 to 7 hours, they just lose their patience. So our role is to really counsel them that this is the labor process. So here the antenatal classes make a definite role. We actually make them understand the process of labor, how the dilatation occurs. And I have to put my foot down, unless it's an impending indication for placenta previa, where you can't have a vaginal birth, central placenta previa, then that is the only one of the indications I have to give an elective cesarean. or if there is a complete transverse lie of the fetus, that is the position is totally different. But otherwise, I don't do elective sections at all. I always tell them, counsel them, and make them mentally prepared to go ahead into the process of vaginal birth. So the only indications they can really have for C-section is a fetal distress or adequately trial of birth and non-progress. So that reduces the incidence of cesarean sections.
Right. Okay. Thank you, doctor. We really had a great and a healthy discussion with respect to the first 1,000 days of the, the fetal life to the childhood. So, what is the one simple message or one takeaway home message for which you would like to give us, both of you?
See, each and every pregnant woman really needs a hand holding and a compassionate partner during her journey of 9 months. Then obstetrician can be a really good partner, and they will always remember you, and it's very, very rewarding to have a successful pregnancy. So as an obstetrician, all my friends and colleagues, I will always request to have that kind of attitude, to have excellent optimum results of the baby as well as mother. Always remember, I just read an article in the morning today that because the infant mortality rate has reduced in many of the European, Chinese, American countries, they are reconsidering their rule of one child in the family. Chinese, they have reduced, they have altered from one child to 2 children, and now they are encouraging 3 children. In Europe also, they know that now the infant mortality is so less that they are actually encouraging to have more children, and they are giving a lot of discounts and concessions. So the same situation is possible, though it looks like far away for India right now because it is really huge population. But if we reduce the health problems in the infants and can give healthy babies, we can definitely look forward to this kind of concept. Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah, actually we have said many things, and the most important is nutrition and nurturing care. These two are the only important things. Okay, many times we focus on nutrition, but we forget about the nurturing care. The child's hunger, for the father or the mother to hug him or her is equally important. And that's why I told you, right from delivery, when the baby these days is put on the abdomen of the mother, and then the mother speaks into the ears of the baby. After delivery, the baby is taken close by the mother, and then during feeding, she will speak, she will sing, for the baby. While feeding, many times, the child is running, the father and the mother are running after the child, and it's not an enjoyable experience. So feeding a child has to be an enjoyable experience. Okay. So the body and the mind both are growing. Remember that. Many times you forget this particular fact. And that's why, remember, it's not only nutrition, but nutrition plus nurturing care. And remember all the facts which I told you about the variety of the food, frequency of the food, and the energy density of the food, and so many other things which I told you related to the caloric requirement, the iron, and the other trace elements, and type 1 and type 2 nutrients, all are very important. And in case if someone is interested, anyone always can contact us so that we can give them further information. I congratulate, Mayor Vita Biotics for this particular symposium, and it has given a lot of information to the audience, and as well as it has also, made us also think about, what our listeners want and what is to be told to them. Okay, thank you.
Lastly, thank you so much, and I would just like to take 2 minutes of yours because this is a platform where I should announce that Mayor has always been in the forefront to address any of the healthcare issues with respect to the women, infancy, and the childhood. So, with respect to this, it is our pleasure to announce that our director, who is a very strong-willed woman, Miss Uma Kalekar, director at Mayor Organics, has been conferred with a prestigious award of Janani Award in nutritional leadership category in 2021, that is 28th May. So the award was bestowed to her by Integrated Health and Wellbeing Council, which is IHW, for her exemplary contribution in the area of nutrition health for women. So just 2 minutes I'll share my screen with you. Just to hope my screen is visible.
Yes, yes.
This is all about the award.
Let's now move on to the next set of awards, Nutrition Leadership category.
The award in Nutrition Leadership category goes to Uma Kalikar, Managing Director, Mayor Organics.
Ms. Kalikar has been continuously working towards health issues of birth defects in children, prevention, care and rehabilitation, and the way forward in India. Her efforts in creating awareness about health and nutrition in the country through various initiatives are well applauded across the industry. So, Abhijit, I would request you to please present the award to Kalikar ma'am.
बहुत अच्छा उमा कलेकर जी को बहुत बहुत बधाई. आपने हेल्थ और न्यूट्रिशन पर और रिहेबिलिटेशन पर जो काम किया है उसके लिए आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई है.
धन्यवाद चौबे जी, and I thank Mr. Kamal Narayan also. It is a privilege to be amidst all of you, all the dignitaries here and all the co-awardees. It's really a great honor for me to accept this award on behalf of my organization, Mayor Vita Biotics. So my organization, Mayor Vita Biotics, is committed to women's health for more than 3 decades. We are wellness companion for every woman at every stage of her life. So be it osteoporosis or a pregnancy nutrition or a menopausal health, we are committed with our innovative products. It is really a great honor for us to receive this Janani Award, a very prestigious award from IHW. And I'm sure that this makes us more responsible to work more harder to ensure that we serve all womanhood. And when it comes to the birth defect, the initiatives which you take to ensure for the pregnancy nutrition, I think the best gift any person can think of to a woman is a healthy pregnancy and a healthy child. And we are committed for it. And I'm sure that Mayor Vita Biotics will ensure that every woman will have a good health for herself and for her child. I once again thank all of you for this prestigious award. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, Doctor, thank you so much for your patient hearing.
Kindly convey our congratulations to Uma Kalikar. She got the Janani Award. In Sanskrit, it is said, Janani Janma Bhumischa Swargadapi Gariyasi. Janani Janma Bhumi Swarga se Mahan hai. Okay, so remember that. You are doing a fantastic job. And most important vaccine that every mother and baby should get is HE vaccine. That is health education. Okay, all vaccines are important, but you are doing a great job of health education. And I congratulate you and Uma Kalikar for this award. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed
convey my hearty congratulations to Uma Kalikar madam. I have heard a lot about her, and you have always come forward with a lot of innovative products for the women's health. I really wish all the best to all the organization and the employees to keep up good work. Thank you so much.
It is indeed our honor, ma'am. It is honor for us, for our ma'am to be, receiving this award along with other healthcare leaders and champions in the women's health. So lastly, on behalf of Mayor Vita Biotics, on behalf of Ms. Uma Kalikar, I would like to thank Dr. Pramod Jog, Dr. Gayatri Deshpande for such an insightful session on this fetal life to childhood first 1,000 days. It was indeed a thought-provoking session from this first 1,000 days journey of life and covering the need of nutrition in these first 1,000 days. I once again thank all the delegates for attending the webinar and being an active part of this panel discussion. It was great honor for me to moderate this session, and I also thank Mayor Vita Biotics for arranging this wonderful informative session and imparting everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.